Dag med mig vet som more detail detail. Yeah, this is some more information on removing scratches because people seem to be interested in that. And unfortunately, yeah, my table's set up for drawing right now, so I'll do a more detailed thing on removing scratches later when I set up my table and find stuff. But a good thing to do is to practice. You can practice on a piece of wood and just put various finishes on it, like shellac and polyurethane. I said before, the easiest thing to repair is a shellac finish because it dissolves in alcohol. So when you have shellac, it's really easy. You just take sandpaper and lightly sand it if it's not too deep. The deeper the scratch, the more problems you have. Like when you start getting into nicks, which I'll talk about. So yeah, and shellac, I make my own, and then you just brush it on, and then you take a little bit of shellac mixed with alcohol, and you rub it in, and then rub it really hard, and then when the friction will bring the shine back. So shellac's the easiest by far to replace. To refinish. Polyurethane is the hardest because it tends to be brittle and chip out, and sometimes, depending on where it is, sometimes you just have to kind of live with a polyurethane finish unless you want to take it all off. Like look at my guitar scraping videos for that, and put on your own kind of natural finish, which is what I've done to a lot of guitars. A nick is the hardest thing. Sometimes you just have to live with a nick. I had a nick that was bothering me on one of my Godins on my LGXT from a cymbal, and it just bugged me. So, but it was a nick in the finish, and that was that was a nitrocellulose finish. But it was a deep nick, so I actually had to take a cabinet scraper, and scrape it right down, and then refinish it. So you may not want to do that because it's almost impossible to match that to how it was originally, unless it's shellac. Shellac is easy to match. Shellac is the easiest by far to fix. So that being said, sometimes if it's a nick, you're best off just to leave it alone. If it's a surface scratch, you can take wet dry sandpaper, and depending how deep the scratch is, use 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 grit, and the higher the number, the finer it is. And you just go through various stages, and you'll find that like the 4,000 grit will almost give it a polish on its own. And then you take, I've tried lots of things. It's called Godin polish, but anything basically with ground pumice, finely ground pumice in it, if you go in a circular motion, will remove your scratches. Satin, I've been asked about satin finishes. Satin finishes are a little more difficult. Basically, a satin finish is the same as a high gloss finish, just with less polishing and a little less material on it. So a satin finish, you just have to experiment using fine grit wet dry sandpaper and polish, and not as much elbow grease. So for a satin finish, I would spray nitrocellulose on a piece of wood and practice till I got it right. If you want to be meticulous about it, that's what I would do. It sometimes makes me you got to live with a scratch because sometimes trying to get it out, you might make a bigger mess than if you just left it alone. Nicks are what bother me the most, and like surface scratches are easy. Surface scratches you usually just need to, because the finishes are usually thick enough that if you use something like Maguire's, which has fine pumice in it, usually in a circular motion, that's enough to get that surface scratch out. If it's a little deeper, sometimes you have to sand it, again in a circular motion, and then you should be good as gold. So hopefully that helps. So happy plucking, Mason me, and happy guitar finishing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wiedersehen.